old English proverb tells us March comes in like a lion and goes out like a lamb. And it's true that the fiercer qualities of winter weather earlier this month have given way to some pleasantly mild and sunny spells. But what really comes in with lion-like ferocity in our garden in March are the slugs and snails. They prowl for their 5 a day, more accurately 5 a night. Iris leaves, hellebore, tulip foliage, evergreen agapanthus, and our flowering narcissi, to which they seem particularly partial. This charmingly swept-back cyclaminius variety is called snipe, named after the cute bobbing wadebird. In all their unnibbled glory, these flowers really are exquisitely pretty. Of course, the slugs and snails are also beautiful creatures in their own curious way, and you may have noticed they even have a sense of humour, leaving winking faces on chewed tulip foliage. And happily they have left the vibrant spring flower display arranged on our garden table relatively unsampled, while our summer annual seedlings are safe for now, indoors growing on the windowsill, and returning outside a warm welcome to our small garden in Kent, southeast England. It's very good to have your company, and we so appreciate the support you show our channel and all your gardening camaraderie. Thank you, Flowerful friends. Forthcoming Things. We'll show you how to make budget-friendly plant supports, although admittedly there is definite room for refinement in our design technique. And join us on our visit to a handsome historic landscape with over 300 years of garden design history and cake. But first, I'll show you the latest changes in the garden. As you can see, our English lavender bushes have not rejuvenated well following their hardwood prune last year. But does this stop me from wielding the secateurs again? Let's find out. It's the start of March and the bottom of our garden is looking rather scruffy. The old Erysimum Bowles Mauve has a lot of winter dieback. The Fatsia japonica bears frost-damaged foliage, and the 2 boxwood donuts under the holly trees are showing patches of disease. But one truly charming element in this shady corner are the Crocus vernus in the bronze planter. I did have to add a layer of gravel in January when I realised mice had started digging down and eating the bulbs, but I'm so delighted some survived. This cultivar is called whale shark, and I'm whaley happy with them. And the deliciously bronzy Heucherella is Hopscotch. Drastic step 1. Choosing a dry day to limit pathogen spread, I pruned out diseased branches, revealing the holly pots. It's lovely to be able to appreciate them once again. I want to display them with a sense of their rotund form, being gently nestled amongst surrounding greenery. Step 2. Ivy to the rescue. I want to speedily soften the stark boxwood branches, so I decide to use ivy plants as a quick fix. This will involve fairly regular trimming, so it's not a low maintenance scenario, but the raised bed will constrict the ivy roots. I chose a variegated cultivar to mirror the variegation in the holly. There were some sizable lumps of hardcore to excavate, but removing them actually created useful planting pockets for the ivies. Trailing and twisting ivy over boxwood branches proved really fiddly, and in retrospect I don't know why I kept my gloves on for a job that requires nimble fingers. Of course, if I was a patient gardener, I could wait to see if the boxwood regenerates from the bare branches, which it probably could and may still do, even with the ivy in situ. While I work, a pair of robins take an interest. There's something so endearing about the robin's ever-present curiosity. The drastic prune looks a little softer now. Step 3. More greenery. I plant effervescent evergreen Vinca minor Illumination in the holly pots. This hardy, shade-tolerant plant has fabulous fresh green leafage to brighten the space and dreamy soft violet blue flowers. Step 4. Bricks and in-between bits. I mark a guideline to dig a channel for bricks to be spaced around the base of the raised beds. My grandfather's ever-useful tamping rod, over 130 years old, is terrific for breaking up compacted clay and rubble. I bed the bricks down on a layer of sand. They are rather red compared to the others in the garden, but hopefully will soon age and weather down. In the cracks between bricks, I plant ajuga, Bellis perennis, and forget-me-nots. The idea is to soften the juncture where the base of the raised brick bed meets the lawn, and I'm hoping the ajuga might even spread into the lawn, which certainly needs something to green it up after winter waterlogging and compaction from footfall. There's still plenty of tidying and pruning needed in this lower area, but I'm looking forward to the ivy filling out a bit and being able to craft a really pleasing cradling shape around the holly pots. Our new plant supports were inspired by a clip from the Gardener's World website, where Monty Don demonstrates his method for creating inexpensive and durable plant supports from mild steel bars. Monty takes a bar to a tree, imagine this is a tree, and moulds the bar around the trunk to form a semicircular shape, then uses boards to bend the prongs into position. Inspired by Monty's ingenious approach, we thought we'd try our hand at designing and creating our own style of plant support for our larger salvias. On our rather windy site, support is useful to stop salvia stems being bent over and ripped off at the base. You can see an old repair on this wind-damaged armistad. Admittedly not very pretty, but electrical tape and garden wire held this entire base of the branching stem together. Also, in the limited space on the patio, it is good to slightly contain some of the salvia's effusive growth. In theory, our plan seems very straightforward. We're going to cross the steel bar over once, then twice, and bend the prongs into position. What could possibly go wrong? Our mild steel bars are 3 meters long. We begin by marking out half-metre lengths to help ensure the changes we make to either side of the bar are roughly symmetrical. We're going to wrap the bar around a long tom pot to achieve the desired shape, but our garden is on quite an incline, so canes are necessary to help keep the pot in place. It's a really satisfying sensation bending the bar, but I learnt not to use my foot in this way because it hinders the flowing shape, although this kink did naturally smooth out as I pulled the bar taut against the side of the pot. At this point, I reviewed the footage and forgot to press play again, but I actually think this first attempt produced a pleasing organic flowing shape. Yes, the wonky prongs did leave a lot to be desired, but we were quite satisfied with this for an initial effort. And we did manage to capture the entire process of making the second support. bind the prongs by placing the crossed section on top of the pot and pushing each side of the rod downwards, then pushing both prongs together a little to fit inside the pot. I think this second attempt looks fairly pleasing, although it is not noticeably more professionally constructed than the first. For our third attempt we used bricks, my weight and Mark's pulling power to angle up the prongs. This did produce quite a uniform base section. With our pot plant supports, the width between the prongs creates tension against the container sides that helps secure the support in place. For our fourth and final support, we seem to have lost concentration a little and somehow managed to create these big butterfly wings and a kink, so our technique definitely hasn't been perfected. But the supports are unique in an endearingly imperfect way. It was really good fun making them. A quick note on our salvias: it is not recommended to prune Armistead down at the end of autumn flowering as I do. We should wait until we see emergent foliage in late spring, but in our small space, brittle winter branches just get in the way and snap off, so I do take a gamble and cut them down, but it helps to take cuttings as insurance. Pink Pong is already leafing up, and I will chop it down by about 2/3 in April for bushier summer growth. And this pot may look like it needs weeding, but these are volunteer Welsh poppies which offer glorious colour and abundant pollen and nectar while the twiggy salvia gets going. At the start of March, we travelled to Esher in southeast England to visit a handsome landscape with over 300 years of garden fashion, follies and fun. Claremont Landscape is a 49-acre historic pleasure grounds and park dating back to the early 1700s with a serpentine lake, an iconic Belvedere tower, and a dramatic turf amphitheatre said to be the largest and oldest of its kind surviving in Europe. The grounds are owned and managed by the National Trust, while another 100 acres and the Mansion House form part of a private day school. There is a long list of famous visitors, including Thomas Jefferson, the third President of the United States, who took inspiration for his garden at Monticello, and Queen Victoria, who said Claremont, which has been home to English and exiled French royalty, made her rather melancholy childhood a happier place. We visited on a very grey, misty, cloud-oppressive day in early March, but discovered that like the swathes of daffodils and saturated colour splashes of camellia blossoms, some of the oldest living specimens in the UK, the history of this grand space is packed with colourful characters. As we explore the grounds, we will also consider how Claremont's key concepts and design ideas can be translated to a smaller scale for the average garden. It may appear very natural here at first, but every square metre of this landscape actually reflects lavish expense. How can we capture some of the Claremont creativity without aristocratic expenditure? Couple power, a garden tower, and outdoor delights under the bower. Claremont was named after the Earl of Clare, Thomas Pelham Hollis, who later became 1st Duke of Newcastle and who served 2 terms as Prime Minister of Great Britain. He married Lady Harriet Godolphin, and together the power couple forged impressive social connections. In the early 1700s, the Duke bought a modest-looking villa here, surrounded by woods and farmland, purchased from his friend Sir John Vanbrugh. He commissioned Vanbrugh to help elevate the house and landscape into something more spectacular, and the Duke keenly ploughed a fortune into realising this ambition. Now, the Duke's friend Vanbrugh was a very interesting character who boasted a lively CV. He is surely the only designer of homes and gardens to have also helped overthrow a king, in this instance King James II, to be held as a political prisoner by the French for 4.5 years, to write somewhat sexually explicit restoration plays, and to actively defend the rights of women, both of which horrified much of polite society at the time, as well as becoming a leading figure in the English Baroque style of architecture. Around 1715, Vanbrugh found time in his diverse portfolio to create the medieval-inspired Belvedere Tower at Claremont, providing stunning views across the estate and a place for the Duke and Duchess to hold supper parties and play cards. The tower, like the mansion house, is now owned by the Claremont Fancourt School, with very occasional openings to the public over the years, although in the visitor play area of the park there is a fabulous scaled-down version of the tower for children to enjoy. On closer inspection, most of the original circular-headed windows in the Belvedere have now been blocked with stone and painted to create the convincing effect of glass panes. The Belvedere and its sweeping approach and bowling green formed a backdrop to Paul McCartney's video for his UK hit single Waterfalls, released in 1980. If you're familiar with the video, the fairground carousel installed for the shoot may seem a little surreal in the genteel, aristocratic surroundings, but actually it embodies the joy, entertainment, dancing, games, conviviality and colour that Claremont was known for in the Duke and Duchess's time, their lavish hospitality being enjoyed by King George I, King George II, Queen Caroline and other members of the royal family. According to the National Trust, the fête champêtre, or outdoor entertainment at Claremont, became famous across Europe. Sculpting a hill with viewpoints to thrill. Vanbrugh's transformation of Claremont was undertaken in partnership with English garden designer Charles Bridgeman. Bridgeman hadn't overthrown any kings in his career, but he did appear in a famous work by the king of caricature, William Hogarth. Charles Bridgeman, with garden plans in hand, is seen amongst those courting a fictional, fashionable young man about town, seeking his wealthy business. Despite Hogarth's exposé of the hypocrisy of society, it must have been flattering and amusing to be immortalised in the composition, for the painting confirms that the commission of Bridgeman confers great status and that the garden plan is really a map to greater social standing and a show of superior artistic sensibilities. Bridgeman was one of the pioneers of the naturalistic landscape style that spread across Europe, becoming known as jardin à l'anglaise. This approach typically favoured sweeps of gently rolling lawns set against groves of trees, a feature lake to stroll around, and picturesque architecture modelled on classical temples, Gothic ruins and grottos. These landscape features were a stylistic and experiential counterpoint to the more rigid symmetry of the French formal garden style, epitomised by the gardens of Versailles. Whilst pioneering the naturalistic approach, Bridgeman was not averse to showmanship and dramatic statements on a truly bold scale. He created one of Claremont's most famous spectacles, a 3-acre grass-covered amphitheatre carved from the naturally occurring hill, which is believed to be the largest and oldest of its kind remaining in Europe. It offers terraced viewing points and entertainment spaces with charming views, particularly from the highest point, looking across the lake and surrounding landscape. Observed from above, the amphitheatre looks as though it is itself a vast green lake, and a giant stone has been dropped into its centre, sending the turf terraces out in ripples. It has a monumentally sculptural feel, geometric yet soft and undulating, man-made yet natural. Sadly, as visitors this March, we were not permitted to climb its terraces as the grass had recently been reseeded. However, the busy moles clearly did not get the memo. This statement grandeur is a marked contrast to the tiny, charming little thatched cottage that the lower path leads to further on. Built in the mid-18th century and rebuilt in the late 19th, it is an intimate space where guests once enjoyed recreational gambling in the spirit of camaraderie, as well as betting on cockfighting, which was not outlawed in the UK until 1835, although the space now has an altogether more innocent feel as a child's playhouse. On a table inside, the rather temptingly generous slices of plastic cake primed us to later seek out our own refreshments in the National Trust Cafe, which we enjoyed outdoors while a jackdaw watched ever hopefully for crumbs. When visiting gardens with dramatic features like the amphitheatre, the impressive scale can initially make it feel as if there are no immediate design lessons to be taken away and implemented in the average garden. But the universally applicable lesson from Bridgeman with this historic amphitheatre design is to consider the existing features of a plot and work with them to best effect to create maximum impact and enjoyment. So, for example, a garden with a steep bank at the boundary line or situated on a sloping site, it is a case of making use of the gradient as a design statement. This might involve emphasizing the drop in level through flowing planting design or utilizing the fall to create a charming cascade, which was a popular feature of many naturalistic English landscape designs. In a gravel garden, the placement of rocks and plants like a rigoron could be used to evoke the sense of a frothing cascade without the use of water. The formality of steps can be romanticised and softened by allowing plants to self-seed around, and the impact of floral fragrance can be magnified by surround scent as one walks up into a cloud of perfume from a climbing rose above, or as one sits beneath a shrub rose where perfume is trapped in the walled space, intensifying the sensory experience. A sloping garden can be used to emphasize the form and texture of topiarized shrubs, and the beneficial natural drainage of a slope gives an opportunity to sow a bank of flowers that prefer fast draining soil. Or to create interesting interplay of shapes, for example, having horizontal lines play against strong vertical accents. The sinuous line makes a lake serpentine. The extravagant Duke dedicated much of his income to continuous improvements on his beloved Claremont. In 1734, the Duke and Duchess called in architect and landscape magician William Kent to further extend and naturalise the gardens. Kent was renowned for paying incredible attention to the atmosphere of a space and would even plant dead trees if he felt it enhanced the authenticity and mood of the surroundings. William Kent's career as an architect and garden designer evolved from early success as an artist, professionally trained in Italy. Kent believed all gardening is landscape painting. His escapist gardens were heavily influenced by Roman Baroque art, and Kent sought to capture in the gardens he created the idealised pastoral bliss of ancient Rome. At Claremont, Kent modified Bridgeman's originally circular lake by creating the more irregular configuration of the serpentine body of water we see today, along with an island and classical-style pavilion. At the lake, guests would enjoy fishing, boating and picnicking on the island in summer months. Today at Claremont, visitors in spring and summer can hire boats, all named after royal family members, which I think sounds fun enough to tempt us back later this year. The lessons we can take from Kent's changes to the landscape include the importance of enjoying beautiful vistas from secluded spots for quiet contemplation in the garden, and arriving at those viewing points on a sinuous path, creating a sense of anticipation with a non-linear journey around the space, so that a view does not reveal itself immediately, but instead there are a series of vignettes leading to a more expansive picture. In our own gardens, we can recreate that sense of anticipation with gently curving and winding pathways rather than linear walkways through the space, and by using trellis screens or shrubs and trees as partitioning features to conceal what lies beyond and create heightened anticipation until we reach the revealing viewpoint on our passage through the garden, which could be a view as charming as a garden-friendly serpentine pond. The Duke of Newcastle died in 1768, but his personal presence in the landscape remains. The peacock is a reproduction of the original that once sat atop an obelisk in the middle of the lake, referencing the heraldic bird on the Duke's family coat of arms and symbolising resurrection and immortality. The rather intimidating stone boar in the grounds can also be found on the Duke's family coat of arms, representing bravery and perseverance, and was once probably mounted on a gate pile at one of the entrances to Claremont. The bear is a reproduction from a cast of the original heraldic sculpture, conveying strength and fierce protection of kinship and alliance. You may have noticed the ha-ha across the lawn, which was originally installed by Vanbrugh and Bridgeman and later remodelled by another famous garden designer, Capability Brown. A ha-ha allows the beautiful outward view from within the boundary to remain unbroken by fence or wall, while providing an effective barrier to grazing livestock. According to the National Trust website, the word ha-ha takes its name from the exclamation of surprise when one walks across an apparently unbroken sweep of lawn, only to suddenly come across the sunken barrier. It was first described in France in 1709, but I can't help but wonder if there is actually a different source for the name. The ha-ha is a confederation of Berber tribes in the Western High Atlas Mountains and Anti-Atlas Mountains south of Marrakesh in Morocco. For many centuries they have constructed agricultural terraces on the steep mountainous slopes supported by retaining stone walls. In the 17th century there were excellent relations between the King of France and the Sultan of Morocco, with French consuls in Moroccan cities and cooperative military and engineering enterprises. So the agricultural terracing practices of the ha-ha would undoubtedly have been known to the French. If you think about it, the French have Champagne, named after the Champagne province. Denim is Denim. Bordeaux is from Bordeaux. Camembert is named after Camembert. So why not ha-ha from the ha-ha region in the Western High Atlas? What do you think? Should we investigate this further? Thank you for keeping us in such good company to the end of our video. We look forward to welcoming you back to our garden in April. And until then, we wish you all flowerful times and nature-soothed minds.